The sun was nothing but a red blur in the sky of planet Erebos 9. Wind howled through the empty valley, carrying thick dust that scratched at the skin and filled the air with a dry hiss. The new cadets of Orion Training Base were spread across the open field, their helmets sealed and their rifles ready. This was supposed to be a simple survival test, 2 hours of exploration and report back. But nothing about this place felt simple. Cadet Mira Kane stood near the front of the patrol, her visor flashing with readings. The air was thin, the temperature rising fast, and every few seconds static broke through her comms. Behind her, someone complained, "I can't see a thing in this storm. Why do they always send us to the worst planets?" Another cadet laughed nervously, but Mira didn't answer. She was focused on something else, a strange movement on her scanner. It was small, fast, and alive. "Captain, I've got movement at 9 o'clock, she said. The instructor's calm voice replied through static, probably one of the native crawlers. "Keep your distance." But the signal on her screen didn't look like a crawler. It moved in short bursts, then stopped, then moved again, almost like it was afraid. Then, through the haze, she saw it. A small creature, no bigger than a dog, ran out from behind a rock. Its fur shimmered faintly under the light, and 2 glowing blue eyes looked straight at her. The cub froze when it saw the humans. Then it made a soft, broken sound, half growl, half cry. The other cadets shouted, "Hostile! Get ready! Dozens of rifles lifted at once. Hold your fire!" Mira shouted, stepping forward. "Are you crazy?" One of them yelled. "That thing could bite your head off." But Mira's instincts told her something different. The creature's movements weren't violent, they were desperate. It was scared. She slowly removed her helmet, ignoring the captain's angry voice on comms, and crouched down. Her dark hair flew in the wind as she looked straight into the cub's eyes. Her voice was soft, almost like she was speaking to an old friend. "Hey there. It's okay. Come here, my little monster." The cadet stood frozen, watching in disbelief. For a moment, no one moved. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Then the cub whimpered again and ran toward her. Mira stayed low, her hands open. The cub crashed into her arms, trembling, pressing its face against her armor. Its fur was warm and surprisingly smooth, and its heart was racing fast. She could feel it, fear, exhaustion, and something else. Recognition. The others lowered their weapons slowly. "What the hell just happened?" One whispered. "I don't know," said another. "But that thing, it likes her." Before Mira could answer, a deep growl rolled across the valley. The ground shook under their boots. The cub's ears flattened, and it looked over her shoulder in terror. From behind the rocks, a massive shadow began to move. Dust exploded into the air as something huge stepped into the open. A creature at least 10 feet tall, covered in black fur and scars, its eyes glowing the same blue as the cub's. Every cadet raised their rifle again. "Back, everyone back!" the captain shouted, but Mira didn't move. She stood slowly, still holding the cub in her arms, and stared at the beast. Her heart pounded, but something deep inside her whispered, "Don't run." The creature's eyes locked on hers. For a second, the world went silent again, like even nature was afraid to breathe. Then it growled once more, louder this time, a warning that made the air vibrate. Mira didn't blink. She took a small step forward. The captain screamed through comms, "Kane, fall back now!" But she didn't listen. She spoke again, her voice calm and low. "You're not angry, are you? You're just scared for your child." The mother beast tilted her head, confused. Her breathing slowed, her claws lowered slightly. The cub in Mira's arms made a small noise, like it was calling to her. And then, something unbelievable happened. The massive creature stopped growling. It let out a deep rumble, almost like a sigh, and lowered itself halfway to the ground. The other cadets couldn't believe what they were seeing. It's bowing?" one whispered. "Impossible," said another. "No wild beast does that." Mira slowly placed the cub down. The little one ran to its mother, nuzzling her leg. For a brief moment, the 2 creatures touched heads, a scene so gentle it didn't look real. Then as the dust swirled around them, the mother looked back at Mira one last time, a strange, intelligent look. And in that gaze, Mira saw something that made her heart stop. Recognition. The creature turned and disappeared into the storm with its cub. The wind picked up again, wiping away their tracks like they'd never been there. When the team finally returned to base, No one spoke for a long time. The captain finally broke the silence. "What just happened out there, Cadet Kane?" Mira looked down at her dusty hands and whispered, "I think." She remembered me. The room fell silent again. Outside, lightning flashed across the alien sky, and somewhere far away, a faint howl echoed through the storm. Mira felt something inside her stir, a memory she didn't understand, and she knew, deep down, this was only the beginning. The storm had passed, but the tension at Orion training base was stronger than ever. Cadet Mira Kane sat alone in the medical wing, her eyes fixed on the small wound on her arm. It was a light scratch, but what bothered her was not the pain. It was the memory of those glowing blue eyes staring into hers. Every few seconds, she replayed the moment in her mind, the cub running to her, the mother beast bowing, and that strange feeling in her chest, like a forgotten part of herself had awakened. Outside the window, the desert was calm again. But deep inside Mira, a storm was still raging. The door opened with a hiss. Commander Ryan Varick stepped in, tall, cold, and known for never showing emotion. His black armor reflected the light like steel. He placed a data tablet on the table and said, "Cadet Kane, do you know what you've done?" Mira didn't look up. "I stopped a fight before it started." Varick leaned closer, his tone sharper. "You broke orders. You risked your team. And you let 2 unknown life forms escape." He turned the tablet toward her. On the screen was a recording, her standing in the dust, holding the cub, speaking softly. "Come here, my little monster." Then the image of the giant beast bowing. "This footage is already circulating among the upper command," Varick said. "They want to know how you did that." "I don't know," she whispered. "I just felt it." He stared at her for a long moment, then smiled faintly, the kind of smile that never reached his eyes. "You will report to the science division tomorrow. They'll take a few samples, maybe run some scans." "Scans?" Mira frowned. "For what?" "To see if you're special," he said coldly and left the room. That night, Mira couldn't sleep. The base lights dimmed to blue, the sound of engines and distant voices echoing in the halls. She sat on her bunk, staring at her wrist monitor. It still showed the creature's biosignal, faint but alive somewhere beyond the hills. She whispered to herself, "You're still out there, aren't you?" Suddenly, a flicker appeared on the monitor. The cub's signal blinked once, then twice, as if responding. Mira froze. That was impossible. The creature was too far to detect unless... It wasn't. The next morning, she was escorted to the science lab. A cold, white chamber filled with holographic screens and humming machines. Dr. Halen, a soft-spoken scientist with tired eyes, greeted her. "Don't worry," he said. "Just a few simple tests." But when Mira saw the symbol on the wall, her heart stopped. It was a circle with 3 lines, the same symbol she had seen on the cub's tag. She remembered it from her childhood. It was the mark of Project Helios, a secret program her mother had once worked on before vanishing years ago. She looked at Dr. Halen, her voice low. "What is this place really for?" He hesitated. "You weren't supposed to see that." Before he could say more, the door slid open. Commander Varick entered with 2 guards. "Change of plans," he said. "We found the creature's nest." Mira's eyes widened. "You're going to kill them, aren't you?" Varick didn't answer. He just said, "Prepare for deployment, cadet. You're coming with us." Hours later, a team of armored soldiers stood outside the base gates. The planet's twin moons glowed faintly above them, lighting up the cracked ground. Mira stood among them, her helmet on, her heart heavy. They moved in silence, their scanners tracking the faint heat signatures ahead. After a long trek through the canyon, they found a cave, dark and deep. The same soft growl echoed from inside. "Thermals confirm 2 life forms," said a soldier. "Stun rounds ready," Varick ordered. Mira took a step forward. "Pleasing, don't shoot. Let me go first." Varick gave her a hard look. "You get 1 minute. Then we go in." She nodded and entered the cave. Inside, the air was cool and damp. Her helmet light cut through the darkness, revealing faint carvings on the walls. Old symbols, maybe alien or ancient human. Then she saw them, the cub curled beside its mother. The mother beast looked weak, her breathing slow, her fur covered in wounds. Mira's chest tightened. She moved closer, slowly kneeling. The cub lifted its head, recognizing her instantly. It made a soft sound and crawled toward her. "It's okay," she whispered. "I'm here now." The mother opened her eyes and looked at Mira again, that same intelligent gaze. Mira reached out her hand, not touching, just close enough for the creature to feel her presence. "I won't let them hurt you," she said quietly. Behind her, boots crunched against stone. Varric and his men had entered. "Move aside, Kane," he ordered. "We're taking them in." "No," Mira said firmly. "They're not enemies." Varric sighed, then nodded to a soldier. A rifle hummed, ready to fire. Before the shot could go off, the mother beast roared, shaking the entire cave. The walls trembled, rocks fell, and the lights flickered out. In the confusion, Mira grabbed the cub and rolled behind a boulder. "Hold your fire!" she screamed. "You'll kill us all." But the soldiers didn't stop. Blinding light flashed again and again as energy rounds hit the walls. When the smoke cleared, the mother beast was gone, vanished deeper into the tunnels. Varric turned toward Mira, anger burning in his eyes. "This is your fault," he said. "And now, you're going to help us find her." Mira held the cub close, her voice trembling but strong. "You'll never find her without me." Varric gave a dark smile. "Good. Then you're not leaving my sight." As they walked out of the cave, the cub looked back one last time, toward the darkness where its mother had vanished. And somewhere in that deep, echoing silence, Mira knew this was far from over. Because the beast wasn't hiding anymore. It was watching. Night had fallen on Orion Training Base, but inside the command center, lights still burned bright. Every screen showed recordings from the canyon, the chaos, the growls, the dust storm, and Mira holding the cub like it was part of her own soul. Commander Varric watched silently, his arms crossed. His face was calm, but his mind was sharp and restless. He replayed the moment again, when the mother beast bowed before Mira. "Impossible," he whispered. "Unless—" Behind him, Dr. Halen spoke carefully. She reacted to Mira's voice pattern, Commander. Not to sound, but to emotion. "It's almost as if there's a bond." Varric turned his head. "A bond between human and alien?" "Don't insult me." But even he didn't sound convinced. Mira, meanwhile, sat quietly in the holding room. The small cub, now named Lumo in her mind, slept beside her in a containment pod. Its glowing eyes dimmed softly like a heartbeat, and its fur shimmered whenever she whispered to it. She leaned closer to the glass. "I'll get you out of here," she whispered. The cub stirred and let out a soft chirp like it understood. At that moment, the door opened. Dr. Halen entered, holding a small data chip. "Mira," he said softly, "you need to see this." He pressed the chip into a hidden slot under the table. A hologram flickered to life, showing old grainy footage. A younger woman appeared on screen. Kind eyes, dark hair, and a smile Mira had not seen in years. It was her mother, Dr. Ilara Kane. Project Helios, Log 47, the recording began. Her mother's voice was calm but tired. "The hybrid empathy trials are successful. Human neural resonance with creature kind, Epsilon 3, has exceeded expectations. But Command wants to weaponize the link. I won't allow it." Static filled the air, then her voice again, quieter this time. "If anyone finds this, protect them. Protect the connection. It's not a weapon, it's hope." The video ended. Mira sat frozen, her heart pounding. She whispered she knew about them. Dr. Halen nodded. "Your mother created the link. She found a way for humans to communicate with Epsilon creatures using emotion, not words. You inherited her gift." Mira looked at him, her eyes wide. "So that's why they listen to me?" "Yes," he said. "But Varric doesn't care about understanding them. He wants control." Mira's hands clenched into fists. "He's going to hunt them again, isn't he?" Halen's silence was her answer. Later that night, the base alarms were silent, but the air was heavy with tension. Mira stood by the glass pod again, looking at Lumo. The cub opened its eyes slowly, sensing her sadness. She smiled faintly. "I think I finally understand who you are." Her wrist device beeped softly, an encrypted message from Halen. "They're moving the cub at sunrise." "Destination Section 9, Mira frowned. Everyone knew what that meant. Section 9 wasn't for study. It was where failed experiments disappeared. She looked back at Lumo. "No," she whispered. "Not again." Hours later, Mira walked down the quiet hallways in full uniform, her expression calm to hide what she was about to do. Security drones floated past without suspicion. She reached the lab doors and entered the access code Halen had sent her. The lights dimmed as the system unlocked. The cub lifted its head when she entered. "Hey," she whispered, smiling gently. "We're leaving." She pressed her hand against the glass. The containment field flickered and shut down. Lumo jumped into her arms, wrapping its small claws around her neck. "Quiet now," she said softly. "We have to move fast." She made her way through the corridors, every step echoing like thunder in her chest. The base was still, but she could feel the eyes of security cameras following her. When she reached the hangar, she saw the night sky through the open gate, endless and dark. Freedom was just beyond that line. But before she could take another step, a cold voice filled the air. "Going somewhere, Cadet Kane?" Varric stepped out from the shadows, a weapon in hand. His eyes glowed faintly under the dim lights. "You really thought I wouldn't notice?" he said. Mira didn't back away. "You're not going to hurt it," Varric smirked. "You think you understand these creatures, but they're dangerous. They killed soldiers long before you arrived here." "They killed because we invaded their world," she shot back. "They defended their own." For a moment, silence hung between them, the kind that comes before something breaks. Then Varric spoke, almost curious. "Tell me, Mira, when it looked at you, what did you feel?" Mira hesitated. "Peace, familiarity, like it remembered me." He nodded slowly. "Interesting. Then maybe you are more like them than you think." He raised his weapon. "That means you're a threat, too." Before he could fire, Mira threw a flash charge from her belt. The hangar filled with blinding light. She sprinted toward the gate, clutching Lumo tight. Drones swarmed, alarms screamed, and Varric's voice echoed behind her, cold and furious. "Run all you want, Cadet, I will find you. And when I do, I'll take both of you back to where you belong." Mira burst out into the night. The desert wind hit her face like fire. The stars above glowed faintly through the dust. She looked down at Lumo, who stared back at her with trusting blue eyes. "We're going home," she whispered. "To where it all began." Far behind them, red lights from pursuit drones flashed in the darkness. The hunt had begun. The desert night was alive with sound. Engines roared in the distance. Searchlights cut through the dust. Mira Kane ran through the endless valley, her boots sinking into the soft sand. The cold wind tore at her uniform, and the little cub, Lumo, clung tightly to her shoulder. Behind her, the sky glowed red with alarms from Orion Base. Drones swept across the sky like metal birds, scanning for heat signatures. "Come on, Mira," she whispered to herself, breathing hard. Just a little farther. Every few seconds, her wrist monitor blinked, showing how close the drones were getting. Too close. She slid behind a large rock formation, crouching low. Lumo whimpered softly. "Shh," she whispered, stroking his glowing fur. "They can't see us if we stay still." A beam of white light swept across the sand, stopping inches from her hiding spot. She held her breath, her heart pounding like thunder. The drone hovered, scanned the area, then moved on. Only when it was gone did she exhale. "That was close," she whispered. For hours she moved through the desert, climbing, crawling, and hiding from patrols. Her water was running low. Her legs ached, but she couldn't stop. She remembered what her mother's recording had said. Protect the connection. And that's what she was doing now. At sunrise, she reached the crater cliffs, a vast canyon filled with fog and ancient ruins. Broken pillars and symbols lined the rocks, glowing faintly under the morning light. Mira stared at them in awe. So this is where it all began. Lumo jumped from her arms and sniffed the air. He ran toward a dark tunnel at the base of the cliff, his tiny feet leaving glowing tracks. "Wait, Lumo!" she called, running after him. Inside the tunnel, the air was cool and still. The walls were covered with strange carvings, half human, half beast. Mira touched one of the carvings. It showed a human holding hands with a creature that looked exactly like Lumo's kind. Her heart skipped a beat. "It's true," she whispered. "We were connected once." Then she heard it, the hum of engines again. She looked back. A transport ship was descending near the cliffs. Her comms device crackled with a familiar voice. "Cadet Kane," Commander Varric's voice said coldly. "You can't hide forever. Surrender, and I might let you live." Mira grit her teeth. "You'll have to catch me first." She turned off the device and ran deeper into the cave. Varric stepped off his ship, scanning the sand. He smiled. "Run, little Kane, run as far as you can. You'll lead me right where I want to go." Inside the tunnels, Mira moved fast, guided only by the soft glow from Lumo's fur. The passage widened into a giant underground chamber. In the center stood a massive crystal, pulsing with blue light, the same color as Lumo's eyes. Mira approached slowly. The light grew stronger the closer she got. Her wrist monitor went wild with readings, energy, DNA signatures, and frequencies she didn't understand. Lumo chirped excitedly and touched the crystal with his paw. Instantly, the chamber filled with a soft hum. Lines of light ran across the walls, connecting ancient symbols. A hologram flickered to life, a figure that looked like Dr. Ilara Kane, her mother. "Mira," the projection said softly, "if you're seeing this, it means you found the heart of Helios. The connection between humans and the Epsilon creatures still lives in you. Protect it. The future depends on it." Mira's eyes filled with tears. "Mom, I wish you were here," she whispered. Suddenly the ground shook. A massive explosion echoed through the cave. Dust fell from the ceiling. Varric's voice boomed through the comms. "Found you." Mira spun around. Soldiers poured into the chamber, their rifles glowing red. Varric stepped forward, smirking. "So this is your secret. Impressive." "Don't do this," Mira warned. "You'll destroy everything." He raised his hand. "No, Kane, I'll save humanity from monsters like them." He fired. The shot hit the crystal, cracking it open. Light burst across the chamber like lightning. Mira shielded her face as waves of energy rolled through the air. Lumo cried out, his small body glowing brighter. The energy flowed through him, and then through Mira. She screamed as the power surged into her veins. For a second, her eyes flashed the same blue light. When the glow faded, everything went silent. The soldiers were down. The chamber was smoking. Varric stared at her in shock. What are you?" Mira looked at her hands, still glowing faintly. "Something you can't control." Varric aimed again, but Mira moved faster than ever before. She struck his rifle away and kicked him back. The crystal's fragments pulsed and energy swirled around her like wind. "Stay down," she warned. "I don't want to hurt you." Varric just laughed, even as blood ran down his cheek. "Oh, you already have, Kane. You've shown them what you are, and now they'll come for you." Before Mira could reply, explosions shook the ground again. The ceiling started to collapse. She grabbed Lumo and ran toward the tunnel. Behind her, the ancient chamber fell into darkness. Outside, sunlight hit her face as she climbed up the cliffside, gasping for breath. The ground rumbled beneath her feet as the cave below caved in completely. She looked down at Lumo, who blinked weakly in her arms. "It's okay," she whispered, holding him close. "We made it." But in the distance she saw smoke rising. Varric's ship was still moving. He was alive, and he would never stop. Mira looked toward the horizon, where the twin suns of Erebos 9 were rising over the endless desert. "Then we'll keep running," she said quietly. "Until we find the truth." The cub made a small sound, not of fear but of trust. And together they walked toward the light. The desert stretched endlessly under the twin suns. Heat shimmered in the air like liquid glass. Mira Kane moved carefully through the rocks, her uniform torn and dusty, her face marked by exhaustion. In her arms, the small cub Lumo slept peacefully, its blue fur faintly glowing with life. She had escaped the ruins, but she knew the chase was not over. Varric was still alive, and Varric never gave up. At the edge of a canyon, Mira stopped to drink from a small metal flask. Her wrist monitor buzzed again, showing faint signals in the distance. "Scouts," she muttered. "He's sending them after us." She looked down at Lumo. "We'll have to move at night. You and me, little one." Just like before. The cub opened one sleepy eye, chirped softly, and nuzzled her arm. Mira smiled weakly. "At least you still trust me." She looked across the canyon where something shimmered. Old structures half buried in sand. "Maybe there's shelter over there," she said quietly. Meanwhile, many miles behind her, Commander Varric stood on a ridge, looking through a drone's live feed. He could see her, a small figure moving slowly across the valley. He smiled. "She's getting weaker," he said to his soldiers. "Good. The harder she fights, the easier she breaks." Dr. Halen stood beside him, his face pale. Commander, please, she's not your enemy. She's proof that Project Helios worked. Don't you see? She's the bridge between us and them. Varric turned sharply. She's a weapon that should never have been made. She's human, sir. Varric's eyes narrowed. Not anymore. He turned back toward the valley. Deploy 2 hunter drones. I want her alive. For now. By the time night fell, Mira had reached the old ruins. They were vast. Broken towers, shattered statues, and strange symbols glowing faintly under the moonlight. Lumo jumped down from her arms and began to explore, sniffing the ground. Mira followed him into a large stone hall. The walls were covered with carvings. Human figures beside tall beasts working together, fighting together. She touched one of the carvings, her voice soft. So it's true. Humans and Epsilon creatures once lived as one. A low hum filled the air. She turned and saw a small device lying on the floor, half buried in dust. She brushed it off. It was old, maybe hundreds of years, but still active. When she pressed the center, a hologram appeared. Her mother again. Project Helios. Final record, the hologram said. If you are seeing this, it means the experiment survived. The empathy link between species is real. The creatures respond to emotion, not command. But military command sees only power. They will try to use the link to control life itself. If that happens, everything will burn. The hologram flickered, then showed another image, a genetic map connecting human DNA to the Epsilon species. Mira's name was on it. Her heart stopped. She whispered, "They used me. I'm part of the experiment." Lumo looked up at her, blinking his bright blue eyes. She knelt down and hugged him gently. "You and I, we were never meant to be enemies." Suddenly a sound broke the silence, the high-pitched whine of engines. Mira's eyes went wide. No. She ran to the doorway. 2 hunter drones were descending from the sky, their red light scanning the ruins. She grabbed her weapon and ducked behind a wall. "Lumo, stay down," she whispered. The drones fired, blasting chunks of stone into the air. Mira rolled, firing back with short, careful bursts. Her shots hit one of the drones, sending it spinning into the ground. The second drone locked onto her heat signature and fired again. The blast knocked her off her feet. Pain shot through her side. Before she could recover, the drone aimed again. But Lumo leapt out from the shadows, landing on top of it. He clawed at the sensors, releasing a surge of blue light. The drone malfunctioned and crashed beside them. Mira crawled toward him, coughing through the dust. "Good job, little one," she said, smiling weakly. Lumo whimpered softly, his glow flickering. But before she could move again, a slow clap echoed through the ruins. "Impressive," said a familiar voice. Varric stepped out from the shadows, his armor reflecting the blue glow of the ancient symbols. "I told you, Kane," he said calmly. "You can't run forever." Mira stood up, breathing hard, holding Lumo close. "You don't understand what you're doing," she said. "This isn't just about survival anymore. It's about what we used to be." Varric tilted his head. "What we used to be. Weak, naive, controlled by emotion. I'm here to make sure that never happens again." He aimed his weapon. "Come with me, and maybe you'll live long enough to understand your mistake." Mira took a step back. "No, you'll have to kill me first." Varric sighed. "So be it." He fired, but the blast hit the ground beside her as Lumo's glow suddenly flared bright, forming a shield of light. Energy crackled through the air. The ruins trembled. Varric stared in shock. "What is that?" Mira looked down at Lumo, whose eyes were glowing brighter than ever. "It's the connection," she said softly. "It's protecting me." Before Varric could react, the ground beneath them cracked open, revealing a hidden tunnel. The light from Lumo pulled Mira downward, and in seconds both of them vanished into the depths below. Varric ran to the edge, looking down into the darkness. He clenched his fists. "You can run into the ground itself, Kane, but I'll still find you." He turned to his soldiers. "Seal the exits. She's heading toward the ancient network. She doesn't even know what's waiting down there." Far below, Mira landed hard on a rocky floor. She groaned, looking around at the massive underground caverns glowing with strange blue veins of light. Lumo lay beside her, weak but alive. She touched his fur. "We're okay," she whispered. For now, she looked deeper into the tunnels where faint sounds echoed, not of engines, but of something alive. Something big. Mira took a deep breath. "Looks like we're not alone." And as she walked deeper into the glowing dark, she had no idea that what waited ahead would change everything she knew about the creatures, about humanity, and about herself. The tunnels below the ruins stretched for miles. Glowing veins of blue light ran across the walls like flowing rivers. Mira moved slowly, holding a faint torchlight in one hand and the cub Lumo in the other. Her breathing was heavy, her sides still aching from the drone blast. The deeper she went, the warmer the air became and the hum of energy grew louder, pulsing like a heartbeat. "What is this place?" she whispered. Lumo blinked, his fur glowing brighter as if answering her question. The cub jumped from her arms and padded ahead, following the blue lights that led to a massive underground chamber. When Mira entered, her eyes widened. Before her stood a gigantic circular machine, ancient and covered in strange symbols. At its center glowed a suspended crystal, humming with pure energy. Around it were murals of humans and alien beasts, united not as enemies but as family. Mira stepped closer, whispering, "This is where it began." The Helios core. Suddenly her wrist monitor blinked red. Movement detected. She spun around. From the dark tunnel behind her, armored soldiers began to appear. Varric's men, rifles raised. And behind them, Commander Varric himself stepped into the light. "I warned you, Kane," he said coldly. "You should have come quietly." Mira raised her weapon. "You shouldn't have followed me down here." Varric smiled faintly. "On the contrary, this is exactly where I wanted you." He pointed to the glowing machine. "That's the Helios core, the last working relic of your mother's madness. She thought she could unite species through empathy, but all she did was create weapons with emotions." He looked at Mira. "Like you," Mira shook her head. "She didn't create weapons. She created balance. You just can't see it." Varric took a step forward, his boots echoing on the stone. "Balance?" "I saw your mother's balance destroy entire labs. Beasts tearing men apart because they felt fear. That's not balance, that's chaos." He raised his rifle. "This ends now." But before he could shoot, the ground shook violently. Blue energy rippled across the walls. The Helios core flared to life, its crystals spinning faster. Mira grabbed Lumo and shouted, "Run!" The core released a shockwave of light that threw everyone to the ground. When the light faded, Mira stood. But her reflection in the crystal wasn't fully human anymore. Her eyes glowed the same shade of blue as the core. Varric looked at her, stunned. What are you?" Mira looked back at him calmly. "What your kind tried to erase." The soldiers opened fire. Mira dodged behind a pillar, the bullets sparking off the walls. Lumo growled, his glow spreading through the floor. Blue lines of energy surged toward Mira's hands. She felt power rise inside her, a strange mix of rage and calm. When she lifted her palms, a shield of blue light formed, blocking the incoming shots. She pushed forward, and the light exploded outward like a wave, knocking the soldiers off their feet. Varric roared, drawing his plasma blade. "You think you're powerful? You're just another failed experiment." He charged. Their blades clashed, hers made of energy, his forged in steel. Sparks filled the air. Each strike sent echoes through the chamber, dust falling from the ceiling. "You can't win," Varric shouted. Mira's voice was calm but fierce. "I don't need to win. I just need you to understand." Varric's swing grazed her arm, burning her sleeve. She countered with a burst of energy that threw him back across the room. He crashed into a column, his armor cracking. As he stood up panting, he saw movement. The mother beast from before emerging from a side tunnel, her eyes glowing blue in the darkness. The same creature Mira had saved days ago. Varric's eyes widened. "No, not again!" The beast roared, shaking the ground. Soldiers tried to retreat, but the creature lunged, swatting them aside. Mira stood between Varric and the beast, shouting, "Stop! Don't hurt them!" The creature froze. Its massive head turned toward Mira, and for a moment silence filled the ruins. She raised her hand gently. "It's okay. We're not enemies anymore." The beast lowered its head and showing trust. Varric looked around, horrified. "You're controlling it?" Mira shook her head. "No, I'm feeling it." The Helios core pulsed brighter, reacting to their emotions. Suddenly, cracks appeared in the ceiling. The structure was collapsing. Mira ran toward the control console, trying to stabilize it. Varric limped forward, shouting, "If that thing goes critical, it'll destroy us all." Mira shouted back, "Then help me shut it down." He hesitated, then, for the first time, lowered his weapon. They worked together, pressing switches and rerouting energy. Lumo climbed onto the console, his glow linking to the core's crystal. The energy stabilized. For a moment, then the system overloaded again, a final surge too strong to contain. Mira turned to Varric. "Get your men out of here." He shook his head. "You won't make it." "I'll manage," she said firmly. She looked down at Lumo. "We started this. We'll finish it." As Varric and his remaining soldiers fled up the tunnels, Mira placed her hands on the core. The energy ran through her veins like fire. She screamed but didn't let go. Images flashed before her eyes. Her mother, the lab, the first beasts, the day the project ended in flames. Tears rolled down her face. "I understand now," she whispered. It wasn't about control. It was about connection. Lumo pressed his forehead against her arm, glowing brighter. Together, they released a wave of blue light that spread through the ruins. Cleansing, peaceful, alive. The energy storm swallowed everything. When the dust finally settled, Varric stood outside the canyon, staring back at the ruins glowing faintly in the distance. He whispered, "Kane." His communicator crackled. "Commander, are we clear to report her deceased?" Varric didn't answer for a long moment. Then he said quietly, "No, she's not gone. She's part of something now." He turned away as the ruins behind him pulsed one last time, like a heartbeat. Deep below, in the quiet glow, Mira's body lay beside Lumo, both surrounded by light. Then her fingers twitched. Her eyes opened, glowing faint blue. She whispered softly, "We're still here." The sun rose slowly over the desert ruins, its golden light falling on the shattered stone and silent dust. Where once stood chaos and war, now there was only calm, a strange, heavy peace. Commander Varric stood at the edge of the canyon, his armor scorched and his eyes dark with thought. Behind him, soldiers waited for orders. None of them spoke. They all had seen what happened inside the ruins. The light, the beasts, the impossible wave of energy that had silenced the battlefield. One young cadet asked quietly, "Sir, what do we tell command?" Varric didn't turn. "Tell them the truth," he said. The cadet hesitated. "And what's the truth, sir?" Varric looked down into the canyon, where faint blue light still glowed under the sand. "That we were wrong," he said softly. "All of us." Deep beneath the ground, in the heart of the ruins, the Helios core had stopped pulsing. Its light now spread gently through the tunnels, forming rivers of energy instead of storms. Mira Kane slowly opened her eyes. Her vision blurred at first, then cleared, showing the blue glow of the core reflected on the stone walls. Lumo lay beside her, breathing softly, his fur shimmering faintly. She sat up slowly, touching her chest. Her heartbeat was steady, but her veins glowed faintly blue under her skin. She wasn't the same anymore. "Lumo?" she whispered. The cub lifted his head and chirped, eyes bright. Mira smiled weakly. "We did it. It didn't destroy us, it changed us." She stood and looked around. The ancient symbols on the walls were glowing now, not with power but with meaning. Images of humans and beasts walking together appeared in blue light, as if the ruins themselves were remembering. Mira reached out and touched one of the glowing carvings. A soft female voice filled the air, her mother's recorded words echoing from the core. "If you are hearing this, then life has found balance again. The Helios link is not a weapon. It's a bond between souls, one that only those who choose empathy can understand." Mira closed her eyes, whispering, "I understand, Mother." Above the ruins, the air shimmered. The desert sand began to move, forming spirals of blue dust. From those spirals, shapes emerged, the beasts, hundreds of them, climbing from hidden burrows. The cadets backed away in fear, but the creatures didn't attack. They simply stood, eyes glowing faintly, facing the sunrise. Then slowly, from the canyon below, Mira appeared, walking out of the dust, her armor broken, her eyes calm and glowing faint blue. In her arms, Lumo rested quietly, safe and alive. The cadets whispered to each other in disbelief. "Is that her?" "She's alive." Varric took a step forward, staring at her. "Kane." Mira looked at him, her expression unreadable. "You came back," he said quietly. "I never left," she replied. "You just couldn't see." Varric frowned. "What are you now?" Mira smiled faintly. Human and more than human, just like we were meant to be. Behind her, the beasts lowered their heads, forming a silent line of respect. Mira raised her hand gently, and they backed away, disappearing slowly into the desert. The sand swallowed their footprints, leaving only calm silence behind. One of the cadets, still trembling, whispered, She controls them." Mira turned toward him. "No," she said softly. "They choose to listen." She looked at Varric again. "You were right about one thing," she said. "Fear destroys balance, but courage rebuilds it." Varric said nothing. His weapon hung loosely by his side. He looked down, then slowly dropped it into the sand. For the first time, Mira saw not the soldier, but the man behind the armor. A man who finally understood. That evening, the surviving cadets sat around a small campfire near the ruins. No one spoke much. They just watched the horizon, where blue lights flickered faintly in the distance. Not explosions, but life. One cadet broke the silence. "Do you think she'll come back?" Varric stared into the fire. "She's out there watching. Making sure we remember," another cadet asked. "Remember what?" Varric's voice was quiet but firm. "That humanity isn't about power. It's about heart." Far away under the night sky, Mira walked across the desert. Lumo trotted beside her, chasing fireflies that glowed like tiny stars. She stopped on a hill and looked up at the twin moons shining above. For the first time in years, she felt peace. Her communicator crackled, a faint signal from the base. She smiled softly and turned it off. "Not yet," she whispered. "They need time to grow." The wind blew across the sand, carrying her words into the night. Lumo climbed onto her shoulder, humming softly. Mira looked out toward the horizon where sky met sand. Her voice was calm, full of quiet strength. "They called you a monster," she said, stroking Lumo's fur. "But maybe monsters are just those who love differently." As she walked away, the camera, or visual perspective, rose slowly, showing her figure growing smaller against the glowing dunes. One woman and one creature walking side by side toward the endless unknown. And in the wind, faintly her words echoed again. "Come here, my little monster." The screen faded to black. HFY story end. The legacy of the beast.